Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. My name is Sachidananda Das and I am a servant of ISKCON Niagara. I welcome you all on behalf of ISKCON Niagara, on behalf of His Divine Grace, to this wonderful Saturday afternoon weekly program to ISKCON Niagara's virtual program that we have been holding. I can't believe this, but we just finished a little over 6 months since the launch of ISKCON Niagara. So all glories to His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, all glories to His sincere followers, and many thanks to all the individuals who have worked very hard towards making ISKCON Niagara Falls happen, even though it is hard during this pandemic due to the physical association limitations. But somehow or the other, we have been fortunate to get association online. So we continue on doing so until we have this pandemic under control and everybody is safe to come out and meet in person. So today's program is as follows. There will be an opening kirtan / bhajan, followed by discourse. Today's discourse is very special. It is known as the introduction of the Brahma-Samhita. The Brahma-Samhita Samhita means a collection, and Brahma means Lord Brahma, it's a collection of prayers by Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma actually had compiled these prayers in the beginning of creation. Unfortunately, we do not know which millennium, but it is when Krishna imparted him very special knowledge, not only the knowledge of creation, but also his internal information on his internal potencies, on his associates, on his own personal home, Golok Vrindavan. And through the Kam Gayatri mantra, through the sound vibration of his flute. And this particular Lord Brahma was very fortunate to have received this transcendental knowledge directly from Nandan Nandan, Shyam Sundar Sri Krishna. So Vaishnava Dasa Prabhu will be speaking on the introduction of the Brahma-Samhita. It is quite a complicated subject, but it's an amazing topic, and I am very eager to personally listen to this topic because there's so much nectar in it. Brahma-Samhita, actually, we have it in all the ISKCON books, stores, and read vividly and recited, especially during auspicious times like the initiation, etc., and to appease the Supreme Lord during festivals like Janmashtami, etc., are sung very enthusiastically by the devotees. And it is by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that we have found chapter number 5 of this particular work, which is very relevant to the Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And I'm sure Vaishnava Dasa Prabhu will be touching upon a lot more details on the Brahma Samhita. After Prabhu's class, there will be a question-answer session. So if anybody would like to clarify or ask any questions, that would be the perfect opportunity to ask Prabhuji any questions, or if there is any reflections that one may have in their hearts that they may want to express. The only request with folded hands is that please come on in one at a time, unmute yourself one at a time. That way we do not kind of, disturb the speaker or the person who is trying to seek an answer. And everybody will get a chance to express either their opinion or their questions if they have any. Thereafter, there will be some announcements and then a closing kirtan by His Grace Vaishnava Dasa Prabhu. So without further ado, this servant of yours will start with an opening bhajan, a kirtan, and then the rest of the program will follow. Thank you very much, and we really appreciate your association. All glories to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanande, हरि हरि बोल। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्या देश तारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Bhajan, please. So today's bhajan is a bhajan from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur that establishes the supreme personality of Goddess Sri Krishna. It is from the book Sharanagati, and it is from the section number 4 known as Gopritve Varan, that Krishna, you are indeed the provider. It's called Tumi Sarve Swareshwara Vrajendra Kumar. Ishwar means controller or master, and Sarve Swareshwar means the controller of all the controllers, the master of all the masters. You are the master of all the masters, O son of Nanda Maharaj, Vrajendra Kumar. Tumi Sarveshwareshwara Vrajendra Kumar. Tumi Sarveshwareshwara Vrajendra Kumar. Tumi Sarveshwareshwara Vrajendra Kumar. तुम्हारा इच्छाय विश्वे सूझे ना संहार तुम्हारा इच्छाय विश्वे सूझे ना संहार तुम्हारा इच्छाय विश्वे सृजे ना संहार तुमी सर्वेश्वरेश्वर ब्रजेन्द्र कुमार तव इच्छामतो ब्रह्मा कोरेना सृजन तव इच्छामतो विष्णु कोरेना पालन तव इच्छामतो ब्रह्मा कोरेना सृजन तव इच्छामतो विष्णु कोरेना पालन तुमी सर्वेश्वरेश्वर ब्रजेन्द्र कुमार तव इच्छामते शिव कोरेना संहार तव इच्छामते माया सृजे कारागार तव इच्छामते शिव कोरेना संहार तव इच्छामते माया सृजे कारागार तुमी सर्वेश्वरेश्वर ब्रजेन्द्र कुमार तव इच्छामते जीवे जन्म मरण समृद्धि निपाते दुःख सुख संघटन तव इच्छामते जीवे जन्म मरण समृद्धि निपाते दुःख सुख संघटन तुमी सर्वेश्वरेश्वर ब्रजेन्द्र कुमार मीचे माया बद्ध जीव आशा তব ইচ্ছা বিনা কিছু করিতে না পারে। মিছে মায়াবদ্ধ জীবা আশাপাশে ফিরে, তব ইচ্ছা বিনা কিছু করিতে না পারে। তুমি সর্বেশ্বরেশ্বর ব্রজেন্দ্র কুমার। তুমি তো রক্ষা খায়া পালকায় আমার, তোমার চরণ বিনা আশা না হিয়ার। তুমি তো রক্ষা খায়া পালকায় আমার, তোমারা চরণ বিনা আশা না হিয়ার। তুমি সর্বেশ্বরেশ্বর ব্রজেন্দ্র কুমার। নিজ বল চেষ্টা প্রতি ভরসা ছাড়িয়া, তোমারা ইচ্ছায় আছি নির্ভর করিয়া। নিজ বল চেষ্টা প্রতি ভরসা ছাড়িয়া, তোমারা ইচ্ছায় আছি নির্ভর করিয়া। তুমি সর্বেশ্বরেশ্বর ব্রজেন্দ্র কুমার। ভক্তি বিনোদয়তি ভক্তি বিনোদয়তি বিনয় কিঞ্চন, তোমারা ইচ্ছায় তার জীবন মরণ। ভক্তি বিনোদয়তি বিনয় কিঞ্চন, তোমারা ইচ্ছায় তার জীবন মরণ। তুমি সর্বেশ্বরেশ্বর ব্রজেন্দ্র কুমার। Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol. Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchitananda Vigraha, Anadiradir Govinda, Sarva Karana Karanam, Chintamani Prakara Sadmasu Kalpavriksha, Surbhirabhir Palayantam Lakshmi Sahasrashata Sambrama Sevyamanam Govindamad आदिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। श्रियकान्तः कान्तः परमपुरुषः कल्पतरो ध्रुमा भूमिश्चिन्ता मणिगणमयि तोयममृतम् कथागानं नाट्यं गमनपि च वंशीप्रियसखी चिदानन्द ज्योतिः परमपि तदा स्वाद्यमपि च स यत्र क्षीराधिसुरभिभ्यश्च सुमहान् निमेषार्धाख्यो वा व्रजति हीना यत्रापि समयः भजे श्वेतदीपं तममिह गोलोकमिति यं विदन्तस्ते सन्तः श्रुतिविरलचारः कतिपये। Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, welcome everyone who have joined in just now or a few minutes ago. So, as I had mentioned earlier, today's special topic is Introduction to Brahma-Samhita, and our speaker is none other than His Grace Vaishnava Dasa Prabhu. Now, Vaishnava Dasa Prabhu nearly doesn't need much of an introduction because he's been in this movement for over 30 years and born in Durban, South Africa, disciple of His Holiness Bhakti Mark Swami. He became attracted to Krishna consciousness almost about 30 or 32 years ago. Together with his family, they've done quite a bit of seva in the Greater Toronto area. They started the first Sunday school in the Toronto Temple and then assisted in opening the ISKCON Brampton Center. Very instrumental, Vaishnava Dasa Prabhu and his family, a lot of dedication involved in these services. And he has also conducted many courses towards the Bhakti Shastri degree. Some of these courses are basically accredited courses that have been approved by ISKCON Ministry, Education Ministry. So he has conducted actually, from what I recollect, many seminars on Brahma-Samhita. And presently, Prabhuji is serving ISKCON Niagara as Temple President and Director, and a wonderful beacon for all of us who are involved. So without further ado, I would like to invite His Grace Vaishnava Dasa Prabhu. Vaishnava Dasa Prabhuji, please unmute your microphone and please enlighten us with the introduction to Brahma-Samhita. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna to all the wonderful devotees who are attending this Saturday afternoon presentation of the introduction and overview of the Brahma-Samhita. And Sachit Prabhu, I wish to thank you very kindly for always picking the most appropriate song for the occasion. Well done. We are very glad to have you, to have these kind of beautiful bhajans. Otherwise, it will be obscured and forgotten. And thank you for bringing them back to life. Now, today's subject matter is the Brahma-Samhita. It is no easy subject matter. And all I'm going to do today is to try and whet your appetite so you may take a closer look at what this book entails and what's it all about and why it is considered the most important and most difficult book in ISKCON's BVT arsenal. BBT standing for the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, the trust that produces all our ISKCON reading material. Now, Brahma-Samhita can surprise you. It's a very tiny book, something that you may just ignore. You know, when you look at all the other ISKCON, with Srimad Bhagavatam being so expansive, and the Bhagavad Gita and the Ramayana and the Mahabharata being such enormous texts, that you may consider Brahma-Samhita to be something that to be overlooked. But we will discuss further why that should not be the case. So I'm just going to quote a little warm-up sloka to introduce our subject matter, invoke the auspiciousness. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'm going to read a quote from Brahma-Samhita's very first sloka. Now, Brahma-Samhita is spoken by Lord Brahma, and all the commentaries are done by His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Now, it is very, very difficult to comprehend Bhaktisiddhanta's commentaries, and you may need some guidance or some other person to help you to run through the commentaries. Because at the time when Bhaktisiddhanta wrote these commentaries, the English were in power over the Bengal area. And it was customary for all the people in that zone to be very polished in the English language. And we even have people like Rabindranath Tagore with his Gitanjali that won the Nobel Prize for his wonderful English presentations and his poetry. So Bhaktisiddhanta is also commentating in a very high type of English language, which makes it very difficult even for Westerners to comprehend. So the opening sloka for the Brahma-Samhita is spoken by Lord Brahma himself. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigra Anadir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Now, the translation I will read to you is Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. So this particular sloka is considered a Paribhas Sutra. A Paribhas Sutra meaning that this is the king of all the verses that will follow. That anything that you read after this is subject to the rules and regulations of this particular verse. Sometimes you may have a book and it may introduce different subject matters as compared to the first verse, and that can lead to some confusion. So this Paribhas Sutra stands out that Krishna is the supreme Godhead, and there's no other cause beyond Krishna himself. Now, in present day, we find that there are many academics, professors, and all kinds of theorists who present many types of conclusions as to the creation of the universe. But Prabhupada refers this type of theorizing as what we call Dr. Frog mentality. It's like this. A frog lives in a very small pond, but the frog is trying to explain the vastness of the Atlantic Ocean. How can a frog with such limited capabilities describe something that's so vast, so complex, and so enormous? So Prabhupada is trying to say that these professors and academics who propound various types of theories as to the creation are just like having this frog type of mentality with so limited experience that they want to talk about something that's beyond their comprehension. Now, the only way that we can get a glimpse of the creation or understand what the creation is all about, how it was created, and what's beyond this material world is by a process of surrendering. Now, the process of surrendering was discussed in detail last week, where even our minute independence was proposed to be surrendered by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But if we don't accept the position of humility and surrender ourselves to what we consider a higher authority, because in modern day thinking, all of us considers each one of us a higher authority, and we are not prepared to take the knowledge from people that are much more knowledgeable than ourselves. We consider ourselves to be the end. Now, if we take the humble position and surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Guru and the Parampara system, and fortunately, today's discussion is on Lord Brahma, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is part of what we call the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So fortunate that we have to be part of this particular institution. Now, this Paribhas Sutra, sometimes when we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, just give you another example of how confusion can come about. If you're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, you may come across a sloka in Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 11. Vadanti tat tattva vida tattvam yad jnanam advayam Brahma eti parama eti Bhagavan iti sabjate. Now, what that means is that the supreme truth or the absolute truth can be realized in one of three ways, either through the Brahman, or the Paramatma or Bhagavan. Now, that could be a bit misleading and confusing as to if this sloka is saying that I can understand the supreme truth either through Brahman realization or Paramatma realization or Bhagavan realization, then maybe I'll choose one of the three. But if we go closer to Srimad Bhagavatam and we look at the Paribhas Sutra of Srimad Bhagavatam in Canto 1, text chapter 3, verse 28, Etachamsa kala pumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Now, this is the Paribhas Sutra for the Srimad Bhagavatam. That Krishna has many plenary expansions and portions of the plenary expansions, but even though they all appear, it must be understood that Krishna is Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because when you start to read the Brahma-Samhita, you may get confused because there's Lord Shiva creating, there's Mother Durga creating, there's Vishnu's creating, there's Balaram creating, Krishna creating, Brahma creating. Who is the creator? Who is the real creator? Now, if we go back to the first sloka of the Brahma-Samhita, and if you understand Sarva Karanam, that Krishna is the cause of all causes, then we'll understand that Krishna is the original creator. And he has presented himself in different forms for the process of creation because he is aloof from creation. He may be an indirect performer, the original creator, but he is aloof from it. He has nothing to do with the material energy. He has his other expansions that take care of that, which we will come across later in this conversation today. So we discussed that if you surrender to Krishna, then we can say Dadami Buddhi Yogam Te Yena Te Upyante Mam. That if you surrender to the Lord, then he will give you the intelligence by which you can understand all these difficult processes of creation and the transcendental nature of the Lord and his abode, which is going to be presented in Brahma-Samhita. Now, last month, we had many speakers presenting the life and pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, it takes many saints, many sages, and avatars to convince a stubborn society that is just simply not prepared to, to open itself to what's beyond this material creation. Now, all these sages, saints, and avatars have come from the spiritual because they have a taste of the blissful experience in that spiritual world. And they look at our existence and think, gee, look at these poor, fallen, conditioned souls. Look, they think they are so happy. They think they have a very high standard of existence with all their majestic towers and technological advancements. They think that they are very advanced, but actually they are quite a very uncivilized race when compared to those people that exist in the spiritual world. So these avatars have come and said, please come back home, back to Godhead. Now, Arjuna says in the Bhagavad Gita, my dear Lord Krishna, there are many, many people, devotees, that are aspiring to get back to your home. Now, what happens if they are unsuccessful? What happens to that devotee? So Krishna says, well, there's a sloka in the Bhagavad Gita, nehiya abhikrama, pratyavaya na vidyate suapam apyasti, trayata mahat bhayat. That means in this endeavor, there's no loss of diminution. If one makes a little progress on endeavor, then he'll be protected from the greatest danger. And what is that greatest danger? The greatest danger is to take another form of life, another birth, and go through the whole process of birth, old age, disease, and death. That is the greatest danger. So Krishna says, if somebody takes to devotional service, then they can be protected from that danger. And guess what? If they make this advancement, they will take birth in a family of Brahmanas, or they will take birth in an aristocratic family that will have so much of wealth that this individual does not have to spend too much of time trying to take care of the necessities of life, but will have more time to dedicate himself or herself to devotional life. Now, guess what? Here's the deal. Every Canadian citizen falls into this category of being born in an aristocratic family. Because when you take Canada's position, it is the transition between the material world and the spiritual world. How come? Because Canada is rated the #1 country in the world with the highest standard of living. We have the greatest healthcare, we have the greatest welfare system, and everybody lives a super high standard in this country. So this is the national aristocratic family presented by Krishna for every Canadian citizen. Citizens in other parts of the world have a problem. They have to work almost all their lives to educate the children. They have to work all their lives to build a house. They have to give so much of money for healthcare if somebody gets cancer or some very dread disease. But whereas all this is taken care of in Canada, it is the transition. So every Canadian citizen should take this as a very special mercy and boon of the spiritual from God, that he does not have to, or she has to endeavor so hard to adjust the material life. Now they have the opportunity to dedicate themselves to a spiritual life. And don't waste the time trying to get more and more, because all you need to do now is to get more and more spiritualized so you can go back to the spiritual. And this is what Lord Brahma is presenting to us in this Brahma-Samhita. And this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come by giving us the chanting of the holy names of God, an easy process in a country that's rated #1. How more blessed can every Canadian be? Do not lose this opportunity of this human form of life, being born in this particular country, and the International Society of Krishna Consciousness has established centers all over Canada to facilitate our transition to the spiritual world. So we should take advantage. And all glories to all the devotees that are spreading the message of Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So now this particular song, Govindam Adi Purusham, it was recorded by George Harrison in the Beatles studios way back in the 60s. Now, when this song came out, Srila Prabhupada sent a letter to one of the topmost devotees, Shamasundra, and said, "This song brings me so much of transcendental bliss and tears to my eyes. I would like this Govindam Adi Purisham song to be played in every ISKCON center in the morning program." So whenever you go to a Hare Krishna center, you'll find that this particular song is being played in every center in the early morning program. And most of you know there's two slokas, the Venam Varantam Aravind Daraya Laksham and the Angani Yasya Sakalan Ritimanti. So those two songs are being played every morning. Now, the name Govinda, when I was a little boy in South Africa, my mom used to do a Govindam prayers, and we had no idea about the meaning of Govinda. We would fast for a month from certain types of food stuff, and at the conclusion of this fast and this period, my mom would put a tilak on our forehead, not like the Hare Krishna tilak, but something in red, but a U-type shape, and we'd go around the house chanting Govinda, 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 and light a lamp and in ecstasy do this chant, but we had no idea as to its significance. But this word Govinda comes from the Govardhan Puja Leela. It was a time when Lord Indra was flexing his muscles and trying to challenge Lord Krishna at that time. But at the end of the Govardhan Puja, when Lord Indra realized his folly, he had come down with the Kamadhenu cow. And then normally they would have a Go Puja. But the cow was insisting that Lord Krishna now should be the master of the cows. And instead of saying Go Indra, it became Govinda, Govinda. Now this name Govinda is the sweetest of all Lord Krishna's names. There is no name as sweet as Govinda. And that's what's described in our text. Now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we're going to now talk about how this book, the Brahma-Samhita, was discovered. So Mahaprabhu was traveling to South India in the Trivandrum district when he came to the Adi Keshava temple on the banks of the Kaveri River. And at that temple in the library, he found this chapter of the Brahma-Samhita. There are actually 100 chapters of the Brahma-Samhita, and this is the 5th chapter. And he found this, but this was written on leaves. But when he found that Brahma-Samhita copy, the 5th chapter, he fell into a transcendental type of ecstasy. He was so ecstatic at finding this text from Lord Brahma that it was just, you cannot describe the ecstasy that he was feeling. Now, I'm going to quote you from the Chaitanya Amritamrita Madhyam Leela, chapter 9, and what Lord Chaitanya said when he found this book and how he described it. There's a sloka 239 to 240 in the Madhyam Leela, and it goes like this. Siddhanta Shastra Nahi Brahma-Samhita Ra Sama Govinda Mahi Janera Parama Karana Alpa Share Kahe Siddhanta Apra Shakala Vaishnava Shastra Made Ati Sara. And the translation goes like this. There is no scripture equal to the Brahma-Samhita as far as the final spiritual conclusions is concerned. Indeed, that scripture is the supreme revelation of the glories of Lord Govinda, for it reveals the topmost knowledge about him. Since all conclusions are briefly presented in the Brahma-Samhita, it is essential amongst all Vaishnava literatures. Now, in most Hare Krishna temples, when there's a big festival, this Brahma-Samhita slokas will be recited. Now, what must be understood, that in those days, it was very difficult to get books. There was no printing presses as we have today. So they're written on palm leaves and barks, etc. And the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is an 18,000 verse volume, it was written by hand. and very few people could get their hands on the Srimad Bhagavatam. It was mostly the Pandits and the temples. And if you had a Srimad Bhagavatam in the temple that was on the altar, people will come and offer obeisances to the books. That's how valued these books were in those times. But today, with the mass production and printing presses that we have, there seems to be less regard for the books as they had in the previous ages. So these books are very, very valuable. So if you get your hands on them, I mean, hold on to them and treasure them. Now, the Srimad Bhagavatam is an 18,000 verse presentation by Sukadev Goswami. And Sukadev Goswami took very special care not to repeat himself over and over again, but to keep the Srimad Bhagavatam very tight, because the Srimad Bhagavatam is the Amala Purana. It is the nectar of all the Vedas. But when you take the Brahma-Samhita, it is the condensed nectar of the Srimad Bhagavatam. That's how tight the Brahma-Samhita is. So everything is in the Brahma-Samhita. It's a summarized version of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is how valuable this book is. So right now, I'm going to go through the overview of the Brahma-Samhita as to how it is broken down. Section A of the Brahma-Samhita is part of verses 1 to 6. And this is the most difficult part of the Brahma-Samhita. Lord Brahma decided to start with the most difficult part first and then move on to the easier parts later. So the most difficult part is verses 1 to 6. And here we talk about the mantra, the hexagonal figure, and the yantra. Now, when we look at verse 2, Shastra Patra Kamalam, Gokula Akyam Mahatpadam, Tat Karnika Tat Dam, Tat Ananta Amsa Sambhavam. Then verse 3, Karnikaram Mahat Yantra Sat Kona Vraja Kilakam. And it goes like that. So this is describing the hexagonal figure, the actual yantra, where Lord Krishna and the gopis live. But I will come back in a little bit more detail about that soon. Now, part 2 of the Brahma Samhita is verses 7 to 21, and that is the process of creation. You know, we have Lord Krishna, the original personality of Godhead, expanding himself, Balaram into the Chatur Vyuha, which is in the Sweta Dweep, and that's Shankasan, Pradyumna, Anirudh, and Vasudeva. And that Chatur Vyuha is replicated in the Vaikuntha planets again, Mahashankasan, Vasudeva, Anirudh, Pradyumna. And then from Mahashankasan, we're getting the expansion of Mahavishnu. And then we get Shambhu. Shambhu is the glance that makes the contact between Vishnu and the material energy. That is known as Shambhu. That's just one name of Lord Shiva. Is also considered to be Sadashiva. Is also considered to be Rudra. So he has many names. He has many locations. The Rudras, having appeared on the first scene when they first appeared, were so completely destructive that they wanted to destroy everything in their view. So much so that it really concerned Brahma, and he had a talk with Lord Shiva. Listen, you got to cool these Rudras down. So Shiva meditated, and these 11 Rudras, they proceeded to a dam called Mahaloka Kala Dam. Mahakala Lokadam. Mahakala Lokadam. This Mahakala is that great time when the great destruction takes place. And these Rudras are in sort of a dormant state, awaiting for this great time to reappear when they destroy the entire world. So this process of creation goes to verses 7 to text 21. Now, section C is the appearance of Lord Brahma. Now there's two Brahmas. That is why Brahma Samhita can be so confusing. We have two Brahmas. We have the original prototype Brahma, which is Hiranyagarbha, and then the Brahma that appears from the lotus stem, from the navel of Garbhagosai, Vishnu. And along from Brahma is all the other living entities who have come up the stem, and then they are put into the various planetary systems within this one universe. Now, in text 24, Lord Brahma is going to get his first initiation from Mother Saraswati. Uvache Puritas Saraswati, It's Divya Saraswati, something that goes Kama Krishna, Hey Gopi Jana Iti Api. So Uvacha Purusha Tasme Divya Saraswati. So what it says in this, so important in this text 24, is that this Saraswati is not the Saraswati that all the humans are praying to for advancement in academic directions. This Saraswati is called Divya Saraswati. This is transcendental Saraswati. And she gives Lord Brahma the Gopala Gayatri mantra, the mantra that most devotees in ISKCON will consider the sixth Gayatri mantra in a series of 7 mantras that they chant daily. So that's the Klim Krishnaya Govi. We'll discuss that again a little bit further. And then Krishna does the second initiation through the flute. He's initiating Brahma. In text number 27, Krishna gives Lord Brahma the second. It is only after the second initiation, the Kama Gayatri mantra, that Brahma's mind is completely, like, how should I say, purified, and now he can see so clearly. And that's when you get text 28, Traya Vignata Prabhude Atta Vignata Tattva Sagara, Stota Anena Keshava, Stota Keshavam. That's when he starts to chant this Govindam prayers from after getting the second initiation. So now, section D is verses 29 to 55, where Lord Krishna reveals himself. And section E is only one verse, the summary by Lord Brahma. Sriya Kanta Kanta Parama. Prabhu just chanted that sloka right now. He chanted 2 slokas, and this was one of them. It is a summary of the entire Brahma-Samhita. Now, section F is verses 57 to 62, where Lord Krishna instructs Lord Brahma and is giving him his sadhana, what he should do regarding the creation. So we want to go back now to the second verse of the Brahma-Samhita, just to give you a little taste of how complex this Brahma-Samhita is. So the verse goes like this. Shahastra Patra Kamalam Gokula Akyam Padam Tat Karnikaram Tat Dam Tat Ananta Sambhavam. So what this is about, the key or the important aspect of this particular sloka is that this area in India today, which is called Vrindavan, Mathura, Gokula, or this area of Gokula is non-different than Goloka Vrindavan in the spiritual world. That this is the identical part of Goloka Vrindavan. Many people, when they go to the holy Dham, Vrindavan, and they've heard from other devotees that some very advanced devotees, when they go to Vrindavan, they can see Krishna and Balaram with the cowherd boys and the gopis. They can see these pastimes taking place. So some devotees wonder why, when they go to Vrindavan, they are not able to see Lord Krishna and the devotees with their pastimes. So Prabhupada gives an example, and he says, when we look at the sky and we look up to see the sun, and sometimes we do not see the sun because the sun is covered by a cloud, a huge cumulus cloud. And we cannot see the sun because this cloud covers the sun. That is absolutely incorrect, because the cloud is an insignificant part or size in comparison to the sun. The cloud cannot cover the sun, but the cloud is actually covering our eyes from seeing the sun. So therefore, when we go to Vrindavan and we are not able to see the unmanifest pastimes of the Lord, it is because of our own deficiencies that is preventing us our impurities from seeing these pastimes. Now, there's unmanifest pastimes and there are manifest pastimes. When Krishna and the gopis were present in Vrindavan, on earthly Vrindavan, those were called manifest pastimes because the people of Vraj could actually witness the pastimes. But the pastimes that are taking place in Goloka Vrindavan are unmanifest because we cannot see them. And the pastimes that are taking place in earthly Vrindavan are unmanifest because we cannot see them. But they are manifest to the advanced devotees. Now, if that's confusing you, that's great, because that's what happened in the Brahma-Samhita class. Most students were unable to continue in some of the centers because of its confusing nature. So very simply put, we cannot see the pastimes of Krishna and Balaram because of our own impurities. But the advanced devotees can see the pastimes because they're on a very pure level. And the devotees in Goloka Vrindavan, in the spiritual world, on a daily basis, they witness all the pastimes of Lord Krishna. So that's how confusing Brahma-Samhita can be. Now, when we go to the next sloka, Karnikaram Mahat Yantra. Now, most devotees are very familiar with what a yantra is. If you go to most temples, you'll find on the floor of the temple a design, a kind of a design, a quadrangular design with a lotus flower in the center, and that is called a yantra. It brings all auspiciousness to that particular premises. Now, I'm going to give you a little taste of this yantra as is quoted in the Brahma-Samhita, and then we will conclude and we'll take some questions and answers. Now, I want to describe to you the abode of Lord Krishna. Shahastra Patra Kamalam. There are thousands and thousands of petals. That's the abode of the gopis and Lord Krishna. The world, Karnikaram, the world, the center of that lotus flower is where Lord Krishna resides. It's called the world of the lotus flower. Now, that world, which normally we consider as a circular figure, is actually an hexagonal figure. It is six-sided, Satpadistanam. It's six-sided figure. Now, the Gopala mantra, the Klim, Krishnaya, Govindaya, Gopijana, Vallabhaya, Swaha mantra, is actually embedded in that six-sided figure, with Klim being directly in the center of that lotus flower. That's the position of Radha and Krishna, with Krishnaya occupying one place, with Govindaya occupying, Gopijana one place, Vallabhaya one spot, Swa and Ha, each one occupying a spot of the six-sided figure. So that six-sided figure is surrounded by another quadrangular figure, Chaturashtam Tat Parita Swatadukyam Adbhutam. That four-sided figure which surrounds this six-sided figure is Swetadvip. And that four-sided figure is bounded by each one of the Chaturmurde, four personalities, Shankasan, Pradyumna, Anirudh, and Vasa. You know, it's very unfortunate we don't have any diagram to present to you, so it'll be very difficult for you to absorb all of this. But just be patient, you know, we'll be over soon. But this just to give you a taste of how the spiritual world is engineered. And this is the yantra. And there are 10 Dikpale, there are Paritam, there are 10 tridents that's going in each direction, north, south, north, east, west, the nadir and the zenith, up and down, that protects this holy dham from all the non-believers, the Mayavadis, the meditators, the Gyanis, the Karmi Yogis. They cannot enter this particular dham. It's particularly reserved for the Bhakti Yogis. That's what it is. So this is a very brief description of the Brahma-Samhita. There's so much to talk to you about the Mahavishnu's breathing and how the universes are exhaled and how they grow like a seed in the womb and how they develop, and the role of Lord Shiva. He has so much of role in this creation. and Mother Durga's position, she's chart of creation and destruction, Lord Ganesha's position, Lord Surya's position. They are all described in the Brahma-Samhita, and the transcendental world itself is described. So that's all for me today, and I thank you for being so patient and tolerant. So we'll move on to the next section. I really thank ISKCON for providing these books to us. They are really
Prabhuji, you got unmuted. Can you unmute yourself, please?
If you get a chance to read the Brahma-Samhita, please do. It'll be difficult, but Prabhupada found Bhaktisiddhanta's lectures very difficult to comprehend sometimes. So much so that he sat down and he listened and listened and listened. And Prabhupada states that even if somebody's classes are very complex and difficult to understand, but because of its transcendental nature, it'll hit your heart. And if it hits your heart, then you'll get some realization. So when Prabhupada was taking his initiation, the devotees who were associated with Prabhupada, they thought Bhaktisiddhanta didn't know Srila Prabhupada and that he was just some other person in the crowd. But Bhaktisiddhanta says, I know him because he listens very carefully. So I want to thank you very much for this opportunity, and I hope you enjoy the Brahma-Samhita in the future. Thank you.
Vaishnava Prabhu, thank you so much. Indeed, a complicated class. But if anybody has any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself one at a time. And if I see more than two, then we will call upon one of you so that there's no talking over each other. So the microphone is now open. If there's any questions, please feel free to ask Vaishnava Prabhu.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Vaishnava
Prabhu.
Prabhu.
Sorry, go ahead, Prabhu.
No, you continue, Mataji, you continue.
No, mine was a very simple question. So is this like a series of Brahma-Samhita lectures, and this is the first introductory part of it, Prabhu?
I'm gonna try and get this question answered jointly. Thank you for the question, Mataji, and for your interest. I think Sachit and I were discussing whether we should produce a series on these classes. I just thought I'll give an overview today just to whet the appetite of the audience and take it from here to get some guidance from you as to whether we should do some detailed course on this. It's a very detailed course, very complex. It needs a lot of audio visual material to support the class. And I didn't think that this format of this virtual internet presentation could cater for that. And that's why I went for an overview. But is that something you would like the ISKCON Niagara or the other centers to present?
It would be very interesting, Prabhu, because nobody has dealt with this subject matter is one thing. And as you said, I have tried several times myself trying to read the Brahma-Samhita with very little success because I couldn't do it without an Oxford dictionary beside me. And even then it was so hard. So I was just wondering if some senior devotees can throw some light on that so that we can at least, we all love singing Brahma-Samhita, but deeper meaning and, insight into that would be really helpful. But as you said, for a dull head like me, it's not going to work unless you have some visuals over there. It's going to be really terrible for me, Prabhu. If you don't have that kind of, I'm sorry, Prabhu, but if you don't have that kind of facility, then I would not do it. But again, I leave it to the thing of everyone else. Like whatever they say, I'll just go by it. But this would be a nice startup because you've kickstarted this series with a very nice introduction, which was in itself very mind-boggling. But I know I don't know what kind of facilities you have, Prabhu, but it will be nice if you can continue with this. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji. I will defer the remainder of the question to His Grace Satchidananda for further enlightenment.
The conclusion at the moment is it is complex, no doubt. It will require a lot of dedication, not only on the part of the speakers, but a lot of patience on part of the listeners. And definitely audio visual would help. And we can work on it, Vaishnava Prabhu. If you have something, we can put something together. In the future, we can do a series of lectures on Brahma-Samhita. That way it will become easier. Um, Several years ago, we had presented that in ISKCON Brampton Temple and many places over the world, the entire process of creation, and it was mainly from the Brahma-Samhita. It was a PowerPoint presentation, which we will plan on doing at some point at ISKCON Niagara, but it is at least a 3-hour presentation at its least. So perhaps it could be divided into 2 different sections. But this is like a vast ocean. Like Vaishnava Prabhu mentioned that, and the Acharyas mentioned, Brahma-Samhita is like the condensed version of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is 18,000 verses, and which is also a condensed version of the conclusion of all the Vedas, which is the commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And so at the end of the day, Mahaprabhu was so kind that only the relevant portion to the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, which is chapter 5, was discovered by him in the Adi Keshav temple during his South Indian tour. Actually, the Brahma Samhita has over 100, it has got 100 chapters. And the most relevant chapter would be chapter number 5, and that itself is so complex. And like Bhakti Siddhanta Sri Thakur Prabhupada has commented on it. Actually, Srila Prabhupada has not even written a commentary or a purport on it. He left it to his Guru Maharaj's original commentary. And definitely that requires a lot of in-depth studying with bhakti, not on a scholarly level. Because if we try to do it on a scholarly level, then at some point we will be even more confused. So good chanting, definitely, and a lot of in-depth introspective prayers would be required to understand a complex subject. And basically, one more thing, if Vaishnava Prabhu allows me, actually this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is Brahma Samhita itself. So this is another component or a facet of Brahma Samhita. So the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is simple, but yet it is so complex. Complex in the sense that there's so much in the Maha Mantra, there's so much. It's all about Sri Krishna Nandan Nandan. It's all about Radharani. It's all about his associates. It's all about his internal topmost dham or Golok Vrindavan. And then the further delineations, the different petals and the expansions and how Krishna himself. And there are other books like Bhaktivinoda Thakur's, there is a book called the Krishna Samhita, where he has also explained all the different intricacies based on Brahma Samhita. It's a very complex subject. So yeah, we can attempt. All we can do is at the mercy of, but pray to the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas to give us some insight into their own writings. Because sometimes even when we are reading Srila Prabhupada's books, whether it is Bhagavad Gita purports or Srimad Bhagavatam purports, there's a lot of in-depthness. And sometimes we just, do not have the eyes and the consciousness to actually grasp those purports. There's a certain level of consciousness that is required to reveal the inner meanings of those purports. So definitely, we can make a humble attempt. But of course, a lot of patience will be required by the listeners, as Prabhu said, and a lot of introspective meditation with bhakti would be required in order to understand these wonderful pastimes of creation. And especially this is the highest mantras that are there, which is the Kam Gayatri mantra. That is why it is the 7th mantra in our Gayatri mantra for the initiated devotees, which is considered the topmost. The last 2 mantras being very much introspective for the Madhuri Rasa. Of course, but this is something that can be discussed at different levels and at different lectures. If devotees are interested, and if we can make a humble attempt to put something together in a PowerPoint or a visual form with diagrams and something that can be more easier to understand. So yes, Vaishnava Prabhu, it is possible, but again, it's a very, very nice challenge to do it, but we can do it. We already have one presentation that we have done on the entire creation, and in the meantime, we can do verses or certain chapters or certain themes, as you mentioned, chapter 1, verses 1 through 7, 7 through 21, 21 through all the different components of the Brahma-Samhita. So it can be done, yes. So the short answer is yes, it can be done. The long answer is it's a long way and a lot of patience is required. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, Vaishnava Das Prabhu, Sachidanand Prabhu, thank you so much. Prabhu, Vaishnava Das Prabhu, thank you for the little enlightenment on the Brahma Samhita. But what I have seen is, Prabhu, my head is spinning. And why I say my head is spinning is, you just try to scratch the surface. We have not gone into depth. Probably we even don't have capacity to go into depth. But we can try whatever we know or little bit, from our acharyas. So when you scratch the surface, if it sounds this much complicated, then how much it will be when we go in deep dive, in future, Krishna willing. So Prabhu, as I said, I'm confused. I have got two questions, if you allow me. The first question is on the Lord Brahma. You said there are two Brahmas, the first Brahma and the second Brahma. Prabhu, all I know so far is about the second Brahma who comes from the Garbhodaksa's novel through the lotus. That is the second Brahma, what you described. I am not aware of the first Brahma and I'm confused. What I tell you in short, that, first Chaturvyuha, that Aniruddha, Sankarsana, Pradyumna, and the fourth one. From there comes the second one, same thing, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Sankarsana, and then the second Sankarsana is also called Narayana. And from second Sankarsana comes the Mahavishnu and Sadasiva. So Mahavishnu is nothing but Karanadaksai Vishnu. And from there comes expansion of that is Garbhodaksai Vishnu, because when Mahavishnu exhales, all the universes come out. When he inhales, all the universes go in. That's Karanadaksai Vishnu, Mahavishnu. When he exhales, all the universes come out. And then Mahavishnu expands as Garbhodaksai Vishnu and enters into each of those universes. And from that Garbhodaksai Vishnu, from his navel comes out a lotus flower from where Lord Brahma comes in. So that is the second one I understood. Prabhu, please enlighten me on the first Brahma.
I have, for now, you are quite right in all your assessments and your commentary on the process of creation, but I just still have a little confusion of Shankishan being Narayan. I thought it was Mahavishnu, Karanakasai Vishnu, also known as Narayan. I'm just, Satyat may clarify that just now. But the Hiranya Garbha, okay, what I'm trying to say, that all the demigods have their original prototype in the spiritual world. They have the prototype demigods in the spirit, like Saraswati, Lakshmi, they all have the prototypes. And this original Brahma, Hiranya Garbha, is the prototype of all the Brahmas. There are zillions of Brahmas throughout the universes, but there's one prototype, like a mold, that they all come from. So he's known as Hiranya Garbha. It was something to do with gold that I read, Hiranya, and from this golden stem that this first Brahma came up. But I can research that and get back to you with more clarification, unless Satyat can just expand on that.
Hiranya means gold and Garbha means the womb. So that is the womb meaning, because Lord Brahma, he appeared from the golden womb of Garbhodaksai Vishnu. So that is why he is known as Hiranya Garbha. Now the Hiranya Garbha Brahma, which Vaishnava Prabhu mentioned, he is the prototype. So that means as many Brahmans there are, that many Garbhodaksai Vishnus there are. So from the exhalation of Mahavishnu, there are millions and millions of Brahmans created. And as many Brahmans, those Brahmans are completely empty. And at that time, Mahavishnu, he expands himself into each and every Brahman. So as many Brahmans, that many expansions of Garbhodaksai Vishnu, or that many expansions of Mahavishnu, known as Garbhodakshayi Vishnus, they recline in their own sweat. It is very interesting. It is called Garbhasagar. That Garbhasagar is about 1/4 or 1/3 filled with water, the sweat, the transcendental sweat of, of the Vishnu Tattva, which is Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, and then he reclines in that water. Garbha means the sweat or the ocean where the womb is there. Garbha Udakashayi means the one who reclines or who rests in that water. Karana Udakashayi means the causal ocean. One who reclines in the causal ocean is known as Karana Udakashayi Vishnu. So, and Shirodakashayi Vishnu, one who reclines or who is resting in the ocean of milk, is known as Shirodakashayi Vishnu. So, Garbhodakshayi Vishnu is there as many Brahmans, that many number of Garbhodakshayi Vishnus who are down in the bottom, floating in the ocean of their own transcendental sweat known as Garbhodak Sagar. And in Garbhodak Sagar, Garbhodakshayi Vishnu reclines, and then from his navel or from his golden womb appears Lord Brahma. There appears a golden lotus from the golden womb, and Lord Brahma appears from him. And like he said that all of them are sort of Hiranyagarbha, because all the Garbhodakshayi Vishnus are the same, non-different. But there is one original source of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, which is Mahavishnu. Just like the source of Mahavishnu and all the other avatars is Govindam Adi Purusham, which Lord Brahma is singing, throughout the Brahma-Samhita. So actually everything is Sri Krishna, if we see, but then especially Eko Sham Bahuda Vidati Kaman. Pitambar Prabhu, he had asked this question probably a couple of weeks ago. What does that mean? So that's the same Sham, that's the same Sham Sundar Sri Krishna who has expanded himself into many. So similarly, there is an origin, and sometimes there is origin and then there's another expansion, and from there are prototypes that are created and recreated for the purpose of creation and for the purpose of the different guna leelas or the guna avatars that are created. So from every Brahma, different demigods appear. It is not just from one Brahma they appear, depending on which Brahman that Brahma is. So there is Chaturmukhi Brahma, the smallest Brahma. There is Eight-Mukhi Brahma, there is 8-headed Brahma. There is Shadadosmukhi Brahma, 16-headed Brahma. Like that, there are so many different types of Brahmas. And in each Brahman, they are actually the secondary creators. And the secondary creator, Lord Brahma, is instructed by Krishna for the different creations, the material creations, when absolutely there is nothing. And also the original Brahma, the Hiranyagarbha Brahma, is fortunate enough to get the transcendental knowledge of the Kam Gayatri, or the original information from Golok Vrindavan. So that is amazing. Krishna doesn't impart that to each and every Brahma directly. Like the Saraswati that Vaishnava Dasa Prabhu talked about is the Divya Saraswati, the divine Saraswati, who is none other than actually Radharani. Actually, it is Radharani and her internal potencies. And the Govinda is none other than Shyam Sundar, the son of Nanda Maharaj. In Golok Vrindavan, who are in the center of the world, in the Karanika, Radha Govinda, they themselves initiate this particular Hiranyagarbha Brahma into this particular mantra, and that is why he was able to compose these wonderful verses known as the Brahma-Samhita, which chapter 5 actually encapsulating the entire bhakti and the entire the model of creation that highlights the importance of Nandanandan or Shyam Sundar Govinda Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So it is a prototype, no doubt, and then they all have the same potency, but the prototype is created, and then again there are expansions and expansions and expansions that happen continuously from them. So it is like achintya bheda tattva. It's hard to explain, but it is something that we have to try to assimilate, not with our intellectual or mental platform, but try to understand it with the platform of bhakti. When we try to understand that, then some insight is given to us, it will be imparted to us. So as again, just to summarize, the prototype is there, it is always there, and then the rest of them are equal. Just like in the Brahma-Samhita it is said that there's one lamp that lights all other lamps. There is one lamp, Deepa Chareva, you know that verse, right? That one lamp lighting all other lamps, they all are same in potency, but still there is one original lamp. So it is like that. So as many Garbhodakshai Vishnus, that many Lord Brahmas appear from his level, and they are actually known as Hiranya Garbha because it is the golden womb from where the golden lotus appears, and then Lord Brahma who appears from the lotus level of Garbha Udakashai Vishnu. Garbha also, as you all know, is womb. Like, we say even in our normal vernacular language, in Indian languages, whether it is Hindi, Punjabi, Gujarati, or in Sanskrit, Garbha means womb. So the womb where the mother, has the child inside the womb and she gives birth to the child. So the birth of Lord Brahma, the Adi parents of Lord Brahma, the father and mother is Lord Vishnu or Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Therefore, he is also known as without parents, but at the same time, the womb is the golden womb of Garbhodakshai Vishnu. So I hope I was able to throw a little light, Pitambar Prabhu.
Prabhu, it's not little, it's much, because something clicked. I recollected that pastime where our four-headed Brahma got pride, got proud, and then Krishna arranged a Leela whereby he invited our four-headed Brahma that you come over. And when he entered, he saw so many Brahmas, 2-headed, 10-headed, 100-headed, multi-headed, and then he says, how come there are so many Brahmas? I think that was just to break the pride of our four-headed Brahma, that look, you are not alone. So what I understood, Vaishnava Dasa Prabhu and Chaitanya Prabhu, is that as many universes are there, as many Garbhodakshai Vishnus are there, because Karanodakshai Vishnu enters into each universe, expands himself as Garbhodakshai Vishnu. And then as many Garbhodakshai Vishnus are there, are as many Brahmas coming out from his novel. Prabhu, to that extent, I am clear. Now, more clarity in part 2, part 3, part 4, whatever Krishna inspires you in the Brahma-Sarita series. Prabhu, I have a second question. Can I ask you, Prabhu?
Ask Vaishnava Prabhu.
Vaishnava Dasa. Yeah, Vaishnava Dasa Prabhu.
No way.
So, Vaishnava Dasa Prabhu, you mentioned of the Lord Shiva and Rudras. Now, let me explain you first what I have understood, such that you can correct me if I am going on the wrong track, Prabhu. So, from Mahavishnu, whom we call Karanodakshai Vishnu, emanates Garbhodakshai Vishnu, right? But from the Sankarsana, the second Sankarsana, no first set, second Sankarsana, whom I call Narayana, because Prabhupada said in one of the Krishna book, Prabhu, for your information. Therefore, he is also equally known as Narayana, the second Sankarsana, from where two personalities emanate. One is Mahavishnu and one is Sadasiva. Like Advaita Acharya, he is the combination of Mahavishnu and Sadasiva. So, Mahavishnu is and Sadasiva. Now, that Sadasiva, my question is on Lord Shiva. That Sadasiva is the Sadasiva who is residing above. He is in the spiritual realm, and his abode never gets partial annihilation or complete annihilation. He is above the transcendental to the material nature. He is in spiritual realm. My question is on the Rudras, Prabhu. So Rudras come out from the Brukruti, from between the eyebrows of our Lord Brahma. Because when Sanat Kumara refused to progenate, then Lord Brahma got angry, and then from the Brukruti, between the eyebrows, the Rudras came in, and then the Rudras started progeniting. But then the Rudras, as Satyanarayana Prabhu said, I think you also said that they started becoming too much destructive. And then you said that Lord Shiva is called upon to tell Rudra to calm down. Now, that is my confusion, Prabhu. That, Prabhu, when you scratch the surface, if there's many confusion, I know what will be my state when you go into deep Samhita, So, please expand on that point where, Prabhu, Lord Shiva is told to calm down the Rudras. That is point one. And then both Shiva and Rudras are actually Brahma's sons, the Brahma, even Lord Shiva, we have heard many times that he comes from Brahma. His father is Brahma. So Prabhu, how is this, how we connect the dots, Prabhu, on that?
You know, at the beginning of the Brahma-Samhita, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati has asked the devotees to please read Brahma-Samhita with this one theme running right through it. That is the theme of Achintya Abheda Bheda Tattva. That everything is one and simultaneously different. Right? Now, Sadashiva, if you go back to the early text of Brahma-Samhita, there is a brilliance, and the dim reflection of that brilliance is the Sadashiva. But this Sadashiva is he has his own Vaikuntha planet. He's not living like outside of the Vaikuntha. So that's one aspect of Shiva, the Sadashiva original in the Vaikuntha. And there's not much information about Sadashiva. You can read all the books. You will not find much information. Now, if you go to Srimad Bhagavatam, in the early cantos, either 1 or 2, there's this Brahma, Lord Brahma, and he's getting the ability to create. And at that time, when he's starting to create, Shiva is there already, because Dakshinat Prajapati, from the left thumb comes Shiva, and from the right thumb comes Brahma, all that stuff. So Shiva is there. But this Rudra that you're talking about, when Brahma wants to ask his kids, the Kumaras, to produce, and there's anger developing him, and then it bursts out in the form of Rudras. These Rudras, they appear also at the early time of creation, and they become very destructive, very, very destructive. Sorry. Go ahead. So anyway, they become very destructive. But there are different types of Rudras. There's 5-headed Rudras. There's all kinds of different Rudras. But to pacify them and to calm them down, Lord Shiva was asked to pacify them and meditate. That is why I read in the Bhagavatam that Shiva gets his meditational position. This one Shiva is meditating to pacify these Rudras so that they can stay in a calm position and wait till this Mahakala time, when the time of the great devastation is appearing, or that's the time for it, they reappear. But all this is in sync with the Ananta Shesha that's sending the fire from the bottom of the earth and all that, and Shiva playing his drum and doing the dance. It all comes in sync at that time. But that is my understanding for this point. But now we can defer to Satchit for further explanation.
Prabhu, before we go to Sachidanand Prabhu, the question is, when Brahma instructed, you say Brahma instructed Shiva to pacify the Rudras.
Yes.
Which Shiva is that? Is that the Sadashiva you are talking about?
No, that's not Sadashiva.
That is not Sadashiva.
There's no question. Is not described as Sadashiva. It is Shiva. Shiva was called upon to meditate.
Shiva. That means there is some other Shiva, not the Sadashiva whom Brahma was instructing.
I mean, this is all the same Shiva in different forms. The Rudra, the Shiva, the Sadashiva, they all one and the same, but different. Like you get Krishna, so many different expansions, but these are the same, one and different person, but all the same at the same time. Simultaneously one and different.
Got it. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Satchidananda.
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. So this is a very complex subject. Now, from what I understand, and I think Vaishnava Prabhu did touch on it, that there are actually 3 types of Shivas or 3 types of Kailashas. Let me put it. First, I will start with the abode of Lord Shiva. The eternal abode of Lord Shiva is Sadashiva, and it is beyond the Brahmajyoti, just at the beginning of Vaikuntha. When in the Vaikuntha lower planetary systems, which is obviously completely transcendental in nature, there is a Kailash there, which is known as the eternal Kailash. And in that eternal Kailash, the Sadashiv feature of the Supreme Lord, it resides there eternally. So as the word indicates, Sadashiv, and he is actually the original source of all Shiva, or all, and then the subjective portions of Lord Shiva known as the Rudras. So yes, that's one. And then you're right, Pitambar Prabhu, that actually when Advaita Acharya appears, he appears as a combination of Sadashiv and Lord Mahavishnu. He's a combination of both. He is a combination of both. So out of pure compassion, they combine to the Hari and Har. They combine together, and they come down, out of pure compassion. And he's of course the cause of the most magnificent avatar, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Advaita Acharya is the one who fervently prayed. So that's one thing. So Sadashiv is eternal, and again his consort, who is a direct expansion, who is an expansion of Radharani, the internal potency, Yogamaya. She is also present as one of the expansions of Sadashiv's consort in Vaikuntha. Now, on the earthly planet, when we come down to the material world, in every Brahman there is one abode known as Kailash. Not within the middle planetary system, but in the upper planetary systems. So there is one Lord Shiva expansion of Lord Shiva who eternally is present along with all the other demigods. He's known as Mahadev. He is present in that Kailash. And then there's another expansion of Kailash and his expansion that actually comes to the middle planetary system or the earthly planet, which is the Kailash that devotees are going in the Chinese territory known as Kailash, Mansarovar, in the Tibet area. So that is a third Kailash. Just like similarly, we have Golok Vrindavan, and then we have Vrindavan, where we are visiting. So their expansions they're non-different in nature, and they're non-different. So at the end of the day, our understanding is not very deep. Honestly speaking, I also do not have that very deep understanding, and I never made that special endeavor to know about it. I'll be very honest, because I never thought that it was very much of a necessity, because there is so much to know about Sri Krishna Nanda Nandan that it is sufficient enough for us to know that he is the Supreme Lord, and all his different expansions are meant to serve him, along with all the different subjective portions and all the demigods and all the different jivas. Now, of course, there is so much exhaustive information that is available that in the Vedas, and because the Vedas were so exhaustive, Lord Vyasadeva had to break down the first Veda, Rig Veda, into three more: Atharva Veda, Yajur Veda, and Samved, and then so many different commentaries in the form of Upanishads, etc. So there is so much exhaustive information, Prabhu. It's unlimited. Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadim, Ananta Rupam. Even Lord Baldev is not sufficient enough to glorify Sri Krishna and Krishna's pastimes, and his different pastimes include the Leela avatars and the Guna avatars. So yes, Sadashiv and Shiv is not a Jiva Tattva. That's also very important to understand. We are all Jiva. Lord Brahma is Jiva Tattva. Lord Brahma has got the maximum qualities that a Jiva can attain is 50. Lord Shiva is in his own category. He is Shiva Tattva. Shiva means auspicious. So he's Shiva Tattva, and his qualities are 55 in nature. And anything over Lord Shiva is all the different avatars of Sri Krishna and his expansions, who have got 60 qualities. And only Shyam Sundar Nanda Nandan, the son of Nanda Maharaj, has got 64 super excellent qualities. So at the end of the day, Prabhu, yes, it is confusing. Even when you read Bhagavatam, there are so many different Leela Bhed, we can say. And sometimes we may find ourselves in a very confusing situation. But at the end of the day, my only request is that, the fire is there. The fireman is there at my door. He's saying, catch my hand, save yourself. And our fireman is Srila Prabhupada. It is okay to go to a certain extent into all these different details. But let me honestly ask each one of us, how is it going to help our bhakti? How is it going to help our faith and our intensity for Nanda Nandan, for Radha Krishna? That is the question. Otherwise, we can continue studying and we can become very crazy. He is so exhaustive that there is a Yasya Ananta Navidu Sura Saraguna Tasmai Devaya Namo Namaha. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Maruta Stunvanti Divyastavai Vede Sango Krama Upanishadai Gayanti Yam Samagatha Dhyana Avastita Yad Gatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasya Ananta Navidu Sura Asuraguna Yasya Ananta, you are so unlimited. Navidu, even the greatest of the demigods cannot understand you. Sura means the demigods. Asuragana means the demons. Even they cannot understand you. Tasmai. So this is the conclusion. But yes, general question and the general answer, Sadashiv is the eternal form of Lord Shiva from whom all other expansions happen. And the Rudra expansions happen when Lord Brahma, when he appears, and in the beginning of creation, as the original Prajapati, when he is supposed to start at that time, from the middle of his eyebrows, Lord Shiva appears in the form of Rudra, and his name Rudra happens because of the Rudanta. Rudanta means he's crying. This, I believe, is explained in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the beginning of creation, when Parikshit Maharaj understands this from Sukadeva Goswami. So he starts crying. First the Kumaras appear and then they leave. They do not want to be the progenitors. They do not want to be the Prajapatis. They prefer to become brahmacharis. And Lord Brahma is upset. And then, during that state of consciousness, the next appearance that happens is from his eyebrows, the Lord Shiva and his Rudra. So then the 11 different manifestations of the Rudras, the crying nature. And also, one more component that little bit I know is one of the expansions of Lord Shiva or the Rudras is Hanumanji. So that's another thing too. So there's so much details. But we have to become experts in our own subject of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. That Gaudiya Vaishnavism is what we are here for. And we just like a student that learns many things when he is up to the 10th grade or 12th grade. So many different subjects, history, geography, biology, and so many subjects they know. But as they filter down into a particular subject, then they try to master that subject. And when we are mastering these subjects, these questions, in my personal humble opinion, they don't really matter much. And it's okay to understand that Lord Shiva is great. He's the topmost Vaishnava, and he's very much favored by Lord Sri Krishna. Krishna also cannot stay without Shiva, because that is why he's present in different components in Raj all over. Like in Radha Kund, he's present as Kundaleshwar Mahadev. In Govardhan Kund, he's present as Chakleshwar Mahadev. In Kamyavan, he's present as Kameshwar Mahadev. In Nandagram, he's present as Nandeshwar Mahadev. In Gokul, he's present as Chintaharan Mahadev. And like there are so many, Mathura is present as Bhuteshwar Mahadev. So many different places, where the pastimes of Krishna are important to the devotee and to the Lord. Because the Lord cannot live without his devotee, and the devotee cannot live without the Lord. So that is the more important thing that I personally, because otherwise, it is impossible to explain, and neither do I have the capacity, neither do I have the intelligence, and neither do I have studied that much enough to throw more light than whatever I've said right now. So thank you very much. I hope whatever little I could share with you, I have shared from whatever little I know about Lord Shiva. But again, this is a vast subject. So
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prabhu. We leave it to the word inconceivable. We take shelter of the word inconceivable. Prabhupada says many times, our tiny brain is so small. Let's not, Prabhu, Vaishnava Prabhu said, Dr. Frog mentality. The frog is trying to know the depth of the ocean. So let us take the shelter of the word inconceivable and leave it at that. But little bit knowledge is will be required, because sometimes while preaching, if some questions come, Prabhu, we should be able to touch base based on the Shastra. So that's why it's good to know as we come across.
Yeah. So
that was the
there is eternal Kailash, where
yes.
Lord Sadashiva resides. His expansion is in the abode of the demigods or in the higher planetary systems. One Kailash there, and then further he expands into each and every Brahman, each and every earthly planet in the form of the Kailash, which is in the northern province of India. And there he performs his pastimes, just like Vrindavan Dham is about couple hundred kilometers from the capital of India. which is the expansion of Golok Vrindavan. And of course, you had asked at one point that how is it that he pacifies the Rudras? So it is like how is it that the Lord himself is teaching the Lord? Question. How is it that the Lord is teaching the Lord? Like the Lord is coming down as a devotee, like Mahaprabhu. So how is it that the Lord is coming down as a devotee as himself? And teaching his own devotion. So these are different inconceivable things that the Lord himself descends, or the Lord's guna avatars like Lord Shiva, they descend according to time, place and circumstance in order to mitigate a certain situation. So that is a good question, actually well thought, but the answer I don't personally have, and I think Vaishnava Prabhu also kind of concluded that it's too complicated to give an answer, and I don't think whether it is Lord Shadashiv who came in and pacified the Rudras or not. That also I don't have that answer, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vaishnava Dasa Prabhu. Thank you, Sachidanand Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Nandpran Prabhu, I see you have unmuted yourself. Would you like to throw some light? And welcome back. Nandpran Prabhu, we are very fortunate that he actually just recovered from COVID, and we are so happy. Our prayers that Krishna always keep him nice and healthy so that we can get his association. He lives in Vrindavan Dham. Nandpran Prabhu, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna to all the devotees. And I am indebted to all the devotees for their prayers for my recovery, Prabhuji. And whatever lights you have thrown about the Sadashiv, Harihar and all that, and expansion of Shivji, I think, Prabhuji, I can't throw more light on that subject. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. But we are very happy to have you, hear your voice.
Thank you all, Prabhuji. Thank you all, Prabhuji.
Look at Anup Prabhu, he is also beaming. Hare Krishna.
No, I am indebted to all of you, Prabhuji, definitely.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Last week also everybody was asking about you. So we are very happy that you're nice and healthy. And I hope Mataji is also doing...
Yeah, she is also recovering, Prabhuji, today.
Thank you.
Much better.
Thank you. Vidam Prabhu, as usual, always nice questions. You're that teacher who is asking the students and rekindling the education. Sometimes we may think we are in the master's class, but then we have to go back to the basics.
No, Prabhu, we need to ask to the Gaudiya Vaishnavas to clarify our doubts, Prabhu. That is our only source, Prabhu. That is the beauty of association of like-minded, wonderful devotees, Prabhu. So that really enlightened, and we should be greedy in spiritual knowledge, Prabhu. I admit, Prabhu, I'm very honest. I'm very greedy. Even the smallest doubt, I would want to ask, and then that throws more light. That gives you more enriching experience, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I believe Sushma Prabhu had raised the hand while you were answering, so maybe Sushma Prabhu can put up the question if. I saw the hand raised.
Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I think, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. Yes, Prabhuji, go ahead.
Okay, no, it's okay. I think whatever I had in my mind is all clarified by you, Sachidanand Prabhuji, and others. So I thought, okay. And the point, basically, what I wanted to say is so many questions, but I remember Brahma-Samhita, my daughter recites, and the word which is used at the beginning is achintya, is the key to the, it's basically, it's not, it doesn't say chintya, basically. So achintya itself is very clear that, you have started something which is complicated.